Hello there, right here we got a brand new 1.20 snapshot. This is for the Trails and Tales update, being 23W14A. First off, what they did is actually update the trail runes that can sometimes be found throughout your world, just with the little piece of them sticking out the top. So these are what the old ones look like. Let's go ahead and look at the new ones. So the old ones have sand, the new ones don't have any sand, and there's actually a bunch of different new structure variations. Like we have this one here where there's a bunch of identical houses all right beside each other. They also changed the amount of gravel as well as dirt that's inside, and the amount of suspicious gravel. They also changed the loot that you could find inside of the suspicious gravel, which is in these structures. So now the loot table is divided between rare stuff and common stuff. So if we go ahead and just put this in command block, and let's first look at the common stuff. This is everything that's considered common that you can get from them. A little bit of everything. Now let's take a look at the rare stuff. You can see this includes the new smithing template as well as the pottery shards. They did change the spelling of shard. It's now S-H-E-R-D. This is also pronounced shard, but actually directly refers to these little bits of pottery that you can find from old broken pots in real life. So now I went ahead and removed the dirt as well as gravel so we can actually see the structures and see if there's any new ones. This one here has a loom and other workstations inside these houses. That house is pretty much destroyed. This one has a little upstairs, which has a photographer table. There's like this really small house on the edge. These almost look like troughs. We still got our little creeper statue. Well, this one here is pretty complex. Look at this. There's like this crisscross that goes all the way down. Way down here we got some blast furnace. So it might be some kind of like massive blast furnace operation. And there is a ladder on the side that lets you go all the way down to the very bottom. This structure here has a crafting table in it. It's actually one of the few places where you can find a crafting table naturally within the world. This one has almost like a little throne room on the backside. Here these have houses that are similar with similar stuff in them. This one looked like it had a huge chimney and fireplace. There's a couple campfires in the center. This looks like one of the little cooking areas like they showed for firing up pots during the Minecraft live event. And they first showed how you'd actually make the pottery shards into a pot with images. You'd actually have to put your pot on top of this flame here. And then only then would it actually get cooked with image on that. With the new designs placed on them. So it's kind of interesting that they put this here. I guess it brings in some lore. There's actually a second one over here as well. This one has a cauldron. Looks like a meeting house with a bunch of like kind of chairs sitting around a campfire. Still got this house here, which has several different workstations within it. This one is like several structures. It has this building which has multiple floors. There's upstairs, there's the main floor with the anvil. There's also steps to go downstairs. And it's right beside two other buildings which also have basements. So it should be a lot of fun for people to uncover these and clean them up while also getting all the loot from the suspicious gravel. What do you think of the new trail runes? And would you try to unearth these in your world? They also improved skulk sensors, so now they won't completely break if you have a vibration memory circuit like this. Because before, when you would unload this, it wouldn't actually remember the vibration that it's supposed to send to the next one when it's unloaded. But now sensors as well as shriekers will stay queued until all adjacent chunks are loaded and ticked. Now we can actually store the vibrations without worrying about them being lost, which could be cool for a little machine that maybe keeps track of what's going on in your area, like a security system. Or something happens, it can store the vibration, and then if something else happens, it can store that vibration. Now, that would be much simpler to just take the vibration and then go ahead and just decode it into whatever type of vibration it was. And then for every time, let's say somebody walks in your house, we could just drop one item into like a chest. Then you can come back to your security system and just check the chest to see what occurred if the person was like looking inside of chests, if they were walking, if they were attacking anything in your house. You can actually keep track of all of it. There was a problem that the skulk sensor actually didn't have enough cooldown. So something like this could occur where the trapdoor would get placed down and then immediately the skulk sensor would hear it, power it, open it up, and then once the skulk sensor was done powering, it would turn off, which would also turn off the trapdoor, allowing it to drop again, making another noise, which would reactivate and repeat the entire system. So they added in a slight cooldown so this wouldn't occur anymore. Though with additional vibration cooldown, I'm going to have to move these a little bit further from each other, create more delay. Skulk sensors and shriekers weren't working properly after you would like save with a structure block and paste them back in. And also wasn't working properly if they're placed in with a custom game structure. But they went ahead and fixed this. So it'll be a lot easier to clone a section of my skulk memory circuit and add more of them. When updating the sensors and shriekers, they were losing some of their information. So now they won't anymore. They updated a little amethyst image on top of the calibrated skulk sensor, as the shading was off compared to how they normally shade these flat 3D models. Now only some types of shriekers will actually summon the warden. And these are like the naturally generated ones. But you couldn't actually pick block these like you normally can, where you can use Control plus pick block to obtain the information within inside of a block. So now it's also been added to the shrinkers, making it a lot easier to use them in creative. Torch flowers were losing the farmland underneath them, which is actually a bug since they are supposed to be a crop. So they solved that, and they also fixed a bug that I reported. I noticed that villagers were picking up the pitcher plant pods as well as the torch flower seeds, but they weren't able to actually plant them on farmland. And they actually added it into the game, so now villagers can plant the new torch flower seeds as well as plant the pitcher pods. Plants will actually naturally grow up on their own. It looks so cool to watch them go around and plant these little roots. Oh, that one just jumped on it and broke it. For some reason, villagers think they have to kind of like jump to get on top of some of these, and when they do jump, they break it. They'll probably want to make a bug report for that. It doesn't appear that they will automatically harvest neither the torch flower or the pitcher pod, like they would other crops, such as like the wheat. So now that I got villagers to be able to automatically plant, I don't even need to have a player here anymore to form an automatic torch flower farm, as the villager can now plant these, and the farm will automatically bone meal them and convert them into the plants themselves. Same for my pitcher plant farm, where before it took a player to place it in here and convert it from the seed into the actual plant. But now we can have a villager do that. I'm just making my farms more and more automated. And with these, they added in some new tags. So there is a tag on the right hand side called maintains farmland. So it'll prevent the farmland from drying off and converting back into dirt. They apparently also add one called villager plantable seeds, which represents all the different seeds that villagers can farm. I don't see that here, but I do see this one called Thor Deficient, which I'm not sure what that would be used for because all these plants are just instant breaks, so you don't really even need to use a sword. And they finally added it so you can actually make sniffers come towards you, tempting them just by using the torch flower seed. It's another easy way to move around if you don't have a lead. When feeding the last torch flower to a sniffer, it wouldn't actually make any noise. And they will no longer break their animation when you feed them while they're sniffing, where they end up just in this sitting mode forever, which does look really cool, but obviously not tended. Sniffers will also no longer dig while they are floating up with levitation. When they would breed and drop an egg, it would actually say chicken plops, which are supposed to make a noise when they drop their egg, but obviously they're not chicken. They resolved a few issues to do with sniffers, including the issue where we couldn't pick them up with minecarts, and sniffers will no longer continue to sniff out stuff while they are under panic, such as being attacked by somebody, and improve the animation between like walking and getting damaged. Now on the launcher here, they also updated the icon. At least they said it's going to be updated soon. So typically when it's a full release, the little icon's default of a grass block. When it's a snapshot, it used to be this craft table, but they said it's going to be a dirt block from now on. Although I can never actually use this one here, because whenever I try to load it, this error about Java Virtual Machine Launcher pops up. I'm not sure why this occurs. Though the icon is updated here at the top of the screen of Minecraft. We also got some technical changes, including addition of the return command. These can be used inside of functions. If you don't know what functions are, they're kind of like command blocks where you can write Minecraft code into them. But instead of executing them with command blocks, you write them inside of something like a notepad on your computer. And then Minecraft refers to that notepad with all the code and it will run it with inside the game. You could do some really cool stuff with that, all without any mods. So with this new return command, it's used in the same way as you would in coding, where if it runs into the return, it can skip the rest of the commands and go back to the main branch. They also added a trigger for when you craft recipes, so you can detect specifically what recipe is crafted. Item displays also got some more additions, like how they render when they're being transformed. This also means they did update the data pack, so it's now to version 14. The most annoying bug has finally been fixed. This bug came about way back in 1.14 and has been in the game since 2019. This is where if you have a developer world and you would hop across some chunks, it would cause your game to freeze. This is because your FPS, frames per second, were dropping pretty much to 0. It had to do with when you hop across a chunk, you're loading something new in a faraway chunk. And that one little object was causing problems, but it could be something as mundane as just a single block sitting over there. I'm so glad they fixed this. Now when I stream, I don't have to worry about having people thinking that my stream is actually freezing every time I just hop across a chunk. They also fixed a few bugs related to sub-chunks and the light mapping. This has to do with light not updating. Here you can see there's a shadow underneath this block here. And in some cases, you could actually remove the block and the game wouldn't update the dark area. The second one had to do with this bug here, where despite an area should be evenly darkened with this overhang here, you can see this center piece was more dark and these other places were actually seeing more light. And the third one that they did is when you actually load a chunk in for the first time, it wasn't updating the light properly. So you can end up areas like this where it looks like there's some kind of light here happening in the corner, when really the game forgot to remove the light after the box was placed in. I run into this problem a lot when designing bigger farms and moving those farms around with structure blocks or their clone command. Such as in my mob farm here, I kept getting fake light to occur in the corners here, which is actually stopping mobs from spawning inside of these spawn platforms. The only fix I could ever find to resolve this was to fill all the air gaps in with something like glowstone and then remove all the glowstone. But there was still cases that the light block itself could be inside of a solid block, which made no sense whatsoever. It was extremely annoying to try to remove. So hopefully with those 3 bug fixes resolved, we don't ever run into these problems again. But we'll also probably fix the bug which light update suppressors use. The redstone with chiseled bookshelves works a little bit differently than most containers. Instead, a comparator reads the last slot they interacted with. So the top left gives you a lower redstone signal and the bottom right gives you the highest. But it wasn't working quite right with hoppers, which would sometimes change up the order. So they went ahead and fixed that. Oddly, you weren't able to actually brush if there was an item between you and the suspicious gravel or sand. So I went ahead and fixed this bug, which probably has to do something with the previous week's bug fix of entities being in the way while brushing. Despite blackstone buttons being actual stone, they weren't actually mining up faster no matter what type of pickaxe you had. So now they're mining up faster. With the new Java Edition logo on the main page, the splash text was oftentimes covering it up, so they adjusted that. You also no longer get shutter when using the set block fill or clone when placing blocks in a mostly isolated area. I know a lot of people have been having this problem here where their profile public key were expired, so you couldn't actually join the server, but now it's been resolved. By using this command, you can set how long people can idle with a poor connection before they are actually disconnected from the server. But setting it too high was actually causing people to get kicked instead of letting them idle longer, which it now does. In some cases, when growing up a pitcher crop, it would actually cause the game to crash when used with the combination of the debug stick to put it into a different growth age. Now I'll start building all my new 1.20 farms, which I have in this playlist here, or this playlist about weird glitches and tricks I found throughout the years of playing the game. Thank you to anyone who shared what I do with other Minecrafters. If not, you guys can always leave a like. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.